What's up, guys? I'm Jacob Geisler, sports nutritionist and tech rep with GOO Energy Labs. We're out here at the EMJ Tri-Camp, and our goal, as well as my goal, is to give you some tips and tricks for Ironman and half Ironman nutrition. It's no doubt that everybody and their mother seems to have nutrition advice, diet planning tips, and whatever you can think of for nutrition and diet, let alone endurance planning. And so our goal here is to give you an idea of what you can do to help better your opportunity and your nutrition strategy for both half Ironman and Ironman distance racing. So whether it's your first Ironman, your 10th Ironman, you're trying to qualify for Kona, nutrition is a must. We like to call it the fourth discipline of triathlon outside of the three legs. You're going to have to replenish during your training and racing. You cannot get away without it. So when thinking about what to replenish and when, we like to break it into four subjects. You have calories, fluids, electrolytes, and amino acids. So my goal is to talk about these elements and break it into three categories. You have why you need them, where you can get them, and how much you need. So we'll start with calories. We're gonna get one thing on the table. Whether you're swimming, biking, or running, you're gonna burn a lot more calories than you're physically able to consume. And that's okay, that's totally normal. The idea is we like to shoot for about 25 to 30% replenishment based off of how many calories you burn in a given hour. Fact of the matter is, when you're swimming, biking, and running, your muscles will burn calories in the form of carbohydrates to fuel muscle contractions for the given effort. So that's what fuels you to keep going and prevent fatigue along the way. Fueling while racing and training not only gives your muscles the fuel to keep training, but it also gives you better recovery opportunity for future efforts, right? Nobody wants to finish a training day and be totally zapped out for their next training session. You want to come back stronger the next day. So once you keep moving, it's important, or once you get moving, to keep moving, it's important to keep it simple. And that's why we like to talk about our energy gels and Roctane energy gels. At all Ironman events, GOO is on course with our inline Roctane energy gel products. That's going to be on both bike and run courses. These energy gels enable you to go faster and be a little bit stronger out there on the course, and delivers carbohydrates via two energy sources. They deliver more sodium, which is different than our normal energy gel, in addition to having about 3 times as many amino acids, which is crucial for protecting your muscles. It's like your muscle insurance policy. You're going to prevent a little bit extra breakdown and hopefully come back stronger. It also acts as an additional energy source, so we'll have those out on course for you guys. And one more thing, when you're out there training and racing, you're working hard, think of protein and fiber and fat as your stomach's enemy in a way. These nutrients are actually harder to digest, and the key thing there is that because they'll sit in your stomach and it takes a little bit longer to digest, it'll actually divert blood away from the working muscles to your gut. Your body can't focus on both things at the same time, especially when it's hour 8 or 9 in an Ironman race. The last thing you want is for your body to have to decide, should I divert blood back to the gut to help digest these nutrients, or should I focus on the strategy and the workout or race at hand? And that's why these gels are so easily digestible. It's simple and it's going to work out really well. Okay, so let's back up for a minute. You're in the middle of a race or a training day. It's a long brick workout. You need calories, but how much? To go back to what I alluded to before, we're trying to replenish about 25 to 30% of the calories that you're burning. You burn 1,000 calories in an hour, let's shoot for 250 to 300 as a replenishment number. So now on to fluids and electrolytes. We're going to talk about why you need them. And the best way to describe this, you're going to be able to absorb fluid the quickest, which also means it's likely to be depleted the fastest. So when you're dehydrated, your performance and your effort deteriorates so dramatically. So it's an exponential rate of actually moving backwards in the field if you think about it in race terms. Ironman and half Ironman distance is hard enough. There's no reason to make it harder by, messing up your nutrition plan or forgetting. If you drop a bottle, for instance, you know how bad that feels in an hour or 2 hours. So when you are optimally hydrated, and you're able to stay hydrated through long distances. Your water balance is on point, which makes you go further and farther. It lets your heart rate stay exactly where it's been. When you become dehydrated, your heart rate goes up, blood becomes more viscous. The whole dynamic of providing oxygen to the working muscles gets thrown off, things slow down, and that's why you feel that inevitable coming to a complete stop where you have to walk during your races. And on the same token of fluid replacement, it's important to talk about electrolyte replacement. Most people know that sodium is by far maybe the most important electrolyte, but it's the primary electrolyte lost during exercise sessions. So training or racing, cold day or hot day for sure, you're gonna lose sodium greater than any other electrolyte. So the largest concerns with electrolyte replacement are 1, replacing with water, 2, replacing with sodium or salt. While you do lose other minerals when you sweat, sodium's gonna be most important. When you drink a sports drink or you drink water with sodium in it, you take a salt capsule, the sodium actually helps your body hold on to water, just keeping you hydrated for longer periods of time. And so you can think in terms of how many hours you're going to be out there racing, and it counts for anything outside of triathlon as well. But to be specific, half Ironman, Ironman racing, you're going to be out there 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12, 15 hours for some of these races. The idea that my body will be able to hold on to water longer, and if we go into talk about absorption of nutrients, if your body isn't optimally or properly hydrated relative to the situation, slows down the absorption of those nutrients as well. So I would say hydration, number 1 topic to think about when talking Ironman, half Ironman nutrition. Then we can get into nutrients and calories. So on the same note of nutrition via fluids, salt, electrolyte replenishment, there's 3 good rules of thumb. It gets tricky because a lot of it depends on the weather, your personal fitness level, your physiology in terms of larger athletes, smaller athletes. But a good rule of thumb is during intense activity, you should be consuming 16 to 32 ounces of fluid every hour. That's a good rule of thumb to start, and that means fluid via water and or sports drink. When you want to combine both, then we're going to talk about maybe 16 of one, 16 of the other, not 32 of both. We don't want to go over 32 ounces per hour. Things can get dicey at that point. Rule of thumb number 2, you should be sipping every 10 to 15 minutes. I think people get a little bit weird about this because oftentimes when you're training and racing, you'll feel very thirsty, probably, and start to drink more often than you should. So, or you want to take big gulps every 30 minutes, but we want to break it up every 10 minutes. I like every 10 to 15. You're sipping. The goal is to finish that 16 ounce or 32 ounce bottle in the given hour. And the rule of thumb number 3 includes replenishment of sodium. So we've done fluid. Now we're talking sodium replenishment. We want to get in 500 to 700 milligrams of sodium per hour, and that can be via sports drink. If you like your own particular drink that doesn't get in the adequate amount of sodium, on hotter days we want to take in more, cooler days, or you don't happen to sweat as much as some bigger athletes, you can hang around 500 milligrams. But this is where salt capsules, electrolyte tablets can come into play, because you can continue to drink the sports drink that you like. Maybe it's even water. You take these salt capsules, electrolyte capsules, and it'll boost you up to 500 to 700 milligrams. So now that we've got those out of the way, we're going to bring up the topic of amino acids and talk about a crucial part of nutrition, and that's recovery. So here at GU, we like to throw around the phrase that eating is training. Recovery is so crucial, and to go back to what I said earlier, nobody wants to finish their training day so trashed, their body is totally wrecked. The goal is to finish the day, recover properly, come back the next day and deliver quality work. And at the rate, and to think about the amount of hours you'll be out on course, think about the muscle breakdown that takes place in a half Ironman and full Ironman event. Your body's depleted of nutrients, calories, muscle fibers are torn, and the way that you can recover obviously is with the protein recovery drink, but amino acids come into play so largely when we're talking about recovery. So the why we already talked about, we don't want to waste our workouts, but the huge reason to incorporate a recovery strategy post-workout is to really, really, really repair your muscles, right? The only way to go further, faster, get stronger, improve over a training block is to build those muscles back after each training session. So like everything else, we have rules of thumb for recovery as well. And the big advice, the first thing we would say is within 30 to 60 minutes of your training session, and especially depending on where you are, it's important within a half hour to a full hour to get that protein in, to get those amino acids in, to start that recovery process and the muscle rebuilding as soon after your session ends as possible. For every pound of water lost on your body, we want to replenish with about 20 to 24 ounces of water after your workout session. So it's crucial to be drinking about half your body weight in ounces of water anyways outside of training and racing. And then you can, on top of that, during your racing and training, you're going to be drinking 16 to 32 ounces anyways. But when the day is over, it's sometimes important to weigh yourself before and after training sessions so you know exactly how much water weight you did lose. Start replenishing with 20 to 24 ounces of water. It can be in the form of a fluid recovery drink as well, but that's super important to help rebuild those muscles back for the next training session. And ultimately, you want to peak for your race. The goal isn't to let it all out in a training session. We don't want to peak 4 months before and then you not be recovered for the race. So something to think about there as well. So we've got some pro tips for you. We got a lot of guys out here with a lot of races under their belts. I've done a fair share as well. And through successes and failures, you know, a lot of people learn from their good races, but I think there's more to take away from the failures and how to, not even failures, but just lessons learned from not so successful races. So we'll go through a few tips and tricks to help better your chance of having an optimal race, especially in that fourth leg, which is nutrition. The most important thing, and I think every pro can attest to this, is while you're practicing swim drills, you're practicing your cycling drills, you're out here for hours and hours, and you're practicing your run drills and stretching and recovery, it's important to practice your nutrition strategy, almost more important than practicing your actual swim, bike, and run. If you don't practice your nutrition strategy as it'll play out on race day, you will likely run into a lot of error just by the sake of I dropped a bottle or I didn't pack enough, I relied on the race course nutrition and they didn't have the flavor, I've never tried this particular gel before. You want to have a foolproof, no room for error type nutrition strategy, and the only way to do that, like just think of how many workouts you'll do prior to race day, how many times you can practice your nutrition session as this is going on. So it's important. I can't say this enough, to practice your nutrition strategy from training session number 1 to the day before the race. And so on that note, while it's super important to pack what you need, you want to make sure that you are not entirely relying on the race course nutrition other than water. I don't think anybody is actually going to be able to pack enough water bottles on their bike for a 112-mile bike of an Ironman course. However, if you pack what you need in your special needs bag, both at transition and at the halfway point, if you happen to drop something or if you're able to grab something on the bike course, you'll be safe knowing that you have your race nutrition, you have your plan set, so that if something goes wrong, even if you don't need it, sake of mind, less stress knowing that I have what I need in my special needs bag, I have what I need in my transition area, that if there were no race course nutrition, you would still be fine. Okay, so we'll run through maybe what a half Ironman or full Ironman race day would look like, especially with GU Energy Lab. We have our Roctane gels out on course. So it's going to be important to think about this in terms of what your day looks like before the swim, after the swim, leading into T1, the bike ride, special needs, T2, out on the run. You have your special needs bag there as well for full Ironman. But for half Ironman, you know, it's easy to think that I'm not going to be out there for that long, relatively speaking. It's maybe a 4.5, 5.5, 6-hour day for me as opposed to 12-hour day for full Ironman. It's still important to think about these things in order from start to finish. You know maybe how you're going to play out, okay, my heart rate here, I'm going to do these watts in the beginning of the bike. It's important to think about that as well as when to take nutrition and how I'm going to do that. So the good part about with our Roctane gels being on course is that Roctane gel if you think back to what I said earlier, the difference between Roctane energy gels and our regular energy gels is primarily increased amount of electrolytes, about 3 times as many, especially sodium, and 3 times as many amino acids, branch chain amino acids in particular. So those are going to help you recover faster. It's going to provide as an additional energy source to protect the muscles, and the sodium is actually going to help keep you replenished. So packing those on you for your race, but having the peace of mind knowing that that's actually going to be on course for you guys as well, is a super nice thing for the athletes to have on course, helping them achieve the ultimate goal, which is probably crossing the finish line, more than likely winning their age group or placing high enough to qualify for world championship races. So starting with the swim, this is tricky, and knowing that after about 60 to 75 minutes of even moderate intensity activity, you've depleted your carbohydrate storage that you would have from eating regular meals throughout the days and the weeks. So thinking ahead of time about how long likely, be honest with yourself, will I be in the water? Is it an hour? Is it 45 minutes? Is it an hour and 15 minutes? Some people like to shove gels in their swim caps to know that I'm gonna be out there for long enough. I wanna make sure I have the energy to get halfway to the swim and back instead of holding on to the buoys, breaststroking, treading water because they failed to even take a gel before, let alone pack, knowing that they're going to be out there for 90 minutes during. So what we like to say is 8 ounces of water before the start, a gel 5 minutes before. That's going to be fine for those swimming probably 75 minutes or less. Now, the key here is that when you get out of the water and you transition from being horizontal to being vertical, blood will obviously go from your torso straight to your legs, and oftentimes inexperienced triathletes will feel a feeling of faintness or lightheadedness, and that's just because blood diversion from the torso, from the core to the legs. And you're rushing to your bike, now probably isn't the optimal time to slam a gel in T1 for 2 reasons. One, your blood sugar and your heart rate is all jostled around. Oftentimes you can't get that down enough for it to make a difference in how you're going to feel. So it's better to just keep peace of mind. That's number 2. Stay calm as best you can. Wait for your heart rate to lower. Maybe that's 5 or 10 minutes into the bike. I would sip water and then start your nutrition strategy as you get into the bike the first couple of miles. So starting at the 30-minute mark on the bike, and this is important, it's optimal to shoot for about, let's say 200 to 400 calories per hour, and that'll give you a range for maybe a slightly lower amount for half Ironman, higher amount for full Ironman. Know that for a 112-mile bike, I'm probably going to start that, first 10, 20, 30 miles a lot less intense than in a 56-mile ride, that of a half Ironman course. So as you get 30 minutes into the bike, when your heart rate starts to come back down, not baseline, but closer to a calmer, steady state, then you can start consuming your calories, right? So maybe it's 30, as I said before, you want to do 16 to 32 ounces of fluid during the bike. That can start at minute 15 if it's water. If you're gulping down nutrition because you feel thirsty at minute 15 or 16, 17, and your heart rate's not yet low enough, that'll sit up high. A lot of people notice that they feel bloated early on because they haven't let their heart rate get low enough. Once you get into that threshold zone, zone 4, zone 5, maybe even high zone 3, it's harder to digest and absorb nutrients, so keep that in mind. And so a lot of people struggle with, where should I get my calories from? Jacob, it's awesome that gels are on course, but you're talking about sports drink as well. They can come from both. So if you're feeling good getting in 350, 400 calories an hour, that can come from both sources of gel and drink. And I would cut it in half like that, because a gel packet, that's 100 calories. Your nutrition drink could be 250, 300 calories in a bottle. So that's 400 calories if you consume all of that over the course of an hour. Now you're gonna sip your drink, but you're gonna take that whole gel. I would just say you wanna capitalize on an entire amount of calories in an hour that you decide on, and over the course of the hour, you work on getting those calories down in smaller increments. So moving forward, let's say your bike course nutrition strategy worked out super well. You've taken in your specific calorie amount that you decide on for all hours of the bike. You're coming into T2, again, you hear the crowd cheering, you see your family, adrenaline starts going, heart rate goes up. Now is not the time to slam another gel, because as you transition from a more still activity, especially for the upper body, like bike riding, your feet hit the ground, now your entire body starts to move, and move vertically as well as horizontally. Absorption of nutrients during the run isn't as high as nutrient absorption during the bike. So as you move into T2, you need to start thinking about what's in my T2 bag, what's in my transition bag that I need moving onto the run course, knowing that it's probably 1 mile from the time you'll receive aid in T2 to the next time you'll receive aid at mile 1, or maybe a few hundred meters or yards beyond that. So to think about, what do I need to grab in T2 that's going to get me to the next aid station? And maybe that's 3 or 4 or 5 gels until you get your special needs. I know a lot of people like to carry all of their gels and not worry about it unless they drop something. Just something to think about. So once you start the run and you transition into that point, I would still treat it like I just got out of the water. Let my heart rate come back down. 13 miles is a long way, let alone 26 in a full Ironman after several hours of exercising anyways. Find your peace, find your rhythm as best you can. Start working on your nutrition strategy. Some people like to break it up every 10 minutes, every mile. I still talk about it in terms of hours. You still want to get in a certain amount of calories an hour, although it's going to be less than that of the bike. So if you maxed out at 400 calories an hour on the bike, you're probably going to look to consume maybe half that, 200 calories an hour on the run. So I get asked this a lot. Do I have to take water every time I take a gel? No, I think a lot of experienced athletes, triathlon, marathon alike, can get away with, it depends on you. A lot of people can get away with taking a gel without water, knowing they're going to get water soon. However, in the longer races, it is important to take water with the gel to help the absorption process. You're breathing through your mouth, your heart rate's high, your mouth is dry. Hitting that gel in your mouth, for instance, it's going to move through a lot slower than if you take water, maybe 3 or 4 ounces, take a gel, 3 or 4 more ounces, you've taken 6 to 8 ounces at the aid station and a gel, and you're moving on. I think that's the best way to go about it. As you move through the run course, things start to get harder, heart rate starts to get higher, muscles start to cramp. It's important to stick to your nutrition plan, and even though you might not feel like taking a gel, it's important to keep that rate of absorption as close to your plan as possible. A lot of people go wrong in this department because they probably didn't practice it in training. If you didn't practice taking 200 calories an hour because you're a heavier athlete and you know you need it on the run, and then on race day you decide, it's going to be super hot, my friends are doing it, I need to make sure I take in 200 calories an hour. You didn't practice it, it's not going to go well on race day. But let's say race day goes super well in the nutrition department, bike course, T2, now run course, you're moving through and you've finished your day. To wrap that up entirely, we talked about replenishing calories, fluids, electrolytes, and then after the day is over, replenishing with amino acids. Even though your race day is over, you cross the finish line, all the hard work is done, you need to help improve and expedite that recovery process as well. And so again, to recap, the simplest way to get in this nutrition is both via fluid and through our energy gels. The energy gels is the simplest way, other than fluid, to get in the appropriate amount of carbohydrates and calories in a given hour during exercise. I think a lot of people forget that we are exercising, you're moving. If we were having dinner, sitting down, relaxing, sure, we could digest cheeseburgers and fries. However, while you're exercising, the importance of how simple the nutrition is to get in, absorbed, and delivered to the muscles is super key. So a couple of more tips to think about. I know that a lot of people run into this issue, and more experienced athletes are probably a little bit better at knowing that if you aren't going to use what's on course, especially in the fluid department, it's important to pack your own drink, knowing that you can get water, so I'm going to pack powder, or knowing that I want everything pre-made, so I'm going to carry this amount of nutrition, knowing that my special needs bag will have the rest to get me to T2. Or especially on the run, some people run with bottles or hydration packs. It's important to keep in mind, I'm going to be drinking this much, I'm only going to grab water on the course, I'm going to make sure I have exactly what I need. And of course, I don't want to fail to mention that if gels aren't your style, there are plenty of other options to get in your nutrition. While fluids and gels are the quickest and the easiest, having an option like a chew or a bar of some kind to get in your nutrition is totally fine. But keep in mind the fact that those calorie numbers per hour do not change. And so getting in one serving of gel that's 100 calories, it's important to transfer that over to I'm going to get 100 calories of chews, I'm going to get 100 calories of stroopwafels, or whatever the case may be, knowing that this works for me, but I'm going to stick to my calorie number as well. So there's more options than just gels and fluids. So the key here also is, I don't want to forget to say, you have to race within yourself. We've been talking about suggestions all day, and this is all relative to the person. What works for me might not work for the next person, especially if it's a heavier or a larger athlete with more muscle mass. You're going to burn calories at a much higher rate than a smaller athlete would. So it's important to not only race within yourself and be mindful of your pacing strategy, your nutrition strategy is specific to you relative to the race, the weather, the environment, who's around you, how fast you're going to be going and when. It's important to take all of those things into account and stay steady, and race within yourself. Thanks for listening, guys. It's been great talking, and I'll see you out there on course.